an odd situation, but we're actually going to have to move over to the other series. So maybe we will see that.
There we go.
This is actually fate. We've brought Jack on. We've teased him just a little bit with this no healer, almost torture at this point.
Yeah.
But now the team that does potentially have the Discipline Priest will be playing in this series. So now you got to be happy, right?
Well, thankfully, I have a purpose. I'm all set for it.
All right, so we're going to actually be swapping it over just a little bit. We'll give those teams just a second to get prepared in this one. But I think I'd like to just take a second to get your thoughts because, of course, you both have expert minds. We just had Future, the Europeans, telling us their take, saying that Europe doesn't do necessarily some of the pulls we saw from Skyline Top in that last one. But Vault of the Wardens, but also Eye of the Shower is the one I really want to talk about. What did you guys think of the Eye of the Shower kind of pull patterns coming out from Skyline Top?
Well, one of the interesting things when you're running with Eye of the Shower is, when you always factored in explosive, you're saying, wow, this is actually kind of scary because most of the meta around Eye of Ashara is just pulling as many crabs and Gilbans as possible and just nuking them down. So, they're seeing the control there, but it also had to factor in some of the bursting, from the bolstering there, where I believe it was on Serpentrix, one of the teams had been pulling, a couple of extra crabs into the boss. That way they were able to kind of funnel in more single target damage, but they did end up getting some bolsterings there. So, the difference between the execution, and, their planning there where they're saying, oh, we'll be able to, we're not going to actually have any cleave on these things, and then they end up dying, you get a couple extra bolsters on the boss, and it doesn't go quite as smoothly as you thought it would.
Yeah, and I think it was really cool to see how they did pocket pick those strategies, but we will be now heading into the game. More of Souls once again will be that first map, and it's going to be Sun Sky, who are the #2 team from China, going up against Shepi, who are the #7. So we'll have to see how they compare to Firefang, who obviously dropped down quite badly in the first series, I think it's fair to say, but Sun Sky were the ones closest to Skyline D. How will they perform in this series?
Very excited for this one. Sun and Sky on the left on the smaller screen on your screen right now. Shepi on the right. We are seeing the Disc Priest coming out for Sun and Sky, and Sours, I'm excited.
Yeah, this is good. So we have our first mage of the entire tournament. The Fire Mage is really popular in China. Maybe he's playing Arcane. We'll find out in just a second. And of course, Shepi is running
as expected. They're running just exactly what they were used to. You're seeing the trap coming out for Shepi here. Both teams just running around across the bridge, having that, perfect alignment, really. Very, very interesting to see just everything getting pulled into the boss. What do you think about the bringing in the Fire Mage versus the double melee here?
So the Fire Mage is going to be able to pump a lot of single target damage onto the boss that maybe a Rogue might do in another team comp, with the exception being they're not putting out nearly as much damage as a Rogue would in a melee composition, whereas this double Havoc Demon Hunter comp is putting a ton of AoE as well as single target with the I-Beam onto both the boss and the trash. But you have to be managing your AoE very carefully because the last thing you want to do is roll those bursting stacks, which could spell end for you.
It definitely could spell disaster here. You're seeing both teams working on taking out the rest of the trash here. You're seeing Shepi is getting quite a bit of an advantage, around 15% boss health advantage here coming out, as Sun and Sky are still working on taking down all the trash.
Yes, so this double Havoc team is doing an absolute incredible amount of single target damage to the boss, and this is really the big time gate here. Getting that boss down as fast as possible will allow you to proceed to the rest of the dungeon, whereas it appears Sun Sky their comp has done more AoE, the trash has died faster, but the boss has died slower, and that's going to set them a little bit behind.
Yeah, and as one of the competitors from the last MDI, how did it feel for you going into some of these competitions when you were going into the very first map? Was there anything, special concerns when you started going up against that first team? Any kind of jitters that were getting to you?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing that's going to happen as soon as the key starts, your heart drops, and you just got to clear your mind and focus in on the game and just put your best foot forward. And no matter what happens, you just have to keep on playing all the way to the end of the dungeon. Anything can happen at any point. A wipe for either team could spell 1 or 2 minutes a setback, and that could be the difference between winning or losing any dungeon.
Yeah, you're seeing as Sun and Sky is just wrapping up the boss, Shepi is going into these very, very huge pulls. You're seeing, and of course, all the CDs being going up, and you're seeing the Paladin. What I love right here is baiting out all those dog jumps. They're making sure that, it's a plate where they're able to actually mitigate a huge amount of the damage. You're seeing Aura Master going up, Wings is already up. Huge, huge bursting damage is coming out right here. Just as all these soul siphons need to be kicked, need to be interrupted again from a lot of the guards on the boat.
Oh yeah, this is a very dangerous pull, but both teams are doing an excellent job at it so far. No deaths coming out of Shepi. The DK is getting dangerously low. Purgatory has popped, so he's got to be careful. The Paladin's extremely low, but these mobs are low, and they're handling it quite well.
Yeah, and you're seeing the bubble going out there for the Paladin, so he's able to, he dropped very, very low. He stuck himself down there, but you're seeing the 4 Barons going up. So a lot of the focus right here is going onto the tanks. As a healer, you want to make sure that you're able to have that kind of focus. And I love being able to see the barrier going up for Sun and Sky on your left side of the screen there. Having that extra control when they're able to get all the little dogs down. You're going to be trying to make sure you're not rolling any of the bursting sacks. That's one of the most lethal things as Disc. A lot of times you're not really able to prep extra shields or too many in advance because the quaking is just going to be absolutely destroying it. So a lot of times you're just focused on getting the best burst possible. And you're seeing, Shepi taking a bit of a breather here. I love seeing this, especially as a healer, when you're able to get just a little bit of a break before you're going to engage the Mariner, or just looking to get the ideal line up there where you're able to skip past them.
Absolutely, and a very important part of going fast is actually sometimes you have to go slow to go fast. And so Shepi is waiting to allow the Mariner. Oh, it looks like the DK is actually, it looks like he's probably just resetting Purgatory there, so it's nothing to be too afraid of with that death. And they are going to be killing this dog patrol. And then you see Sun Sky on the left here has sent the Fire Mage around to pull the trash aside so that the whole team can skip by. And it appears that he died. And disaster.
Full team wide looking out from Sun and Sky here on the left side of your screen. It was looking like they were just trying to be able to skip past to be able to make sure they were keeping everybody up. It looks like they are getting out the failure detection pylon there to get their priest up, trying to make sure he gets topped off before that quaking hits him again. Luckily he had some good shields up. They're able to kind of get the skip past. But we've seen, with a bunch of teams here, when we're able to see all of our Maw of Souls runs, how cleanly each group's going to do it. So it looks like on Shepi's part, for example, they might have just tried to do the pull. He realized he doesn't have Purgatory, and he just calls out to everybody, hey, wait a minute, and let me get Purgatory back, and then we can start doing the skip, and we can kind of get there a little bit more cleanly. So we're kind of seeing, pretty even in the amount of both trash percentage and deaths.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Sun Sky got in combat with that Mariner there, and that Lantern of Darkness really took them out. And so both teams, however, have 3 deaths on the timer, and they're actually neck and neck again, even after that 25-second difference on that first boss. They've caught back up. It appears Shepi is doing an absolutely massive pull here. Looks like
losing their healer, losing one of their DPS there. It's just such a massive pull, and then they're about to be getting another Lantern of Darkness, and this is just going to spell the end for most of their group.
This is definitely looks like we're going to have a wipe out of Shepi. They're going to have to regroup and then move forward while Sun Sky has already started on Harboron. We've got a lot of mechanics to watch out for, but they've got quite a nice cushion of space of the safety ahead of Shepi. They should be in a good spot right now.
Yeah, thankfully they were able to get the battle res out on the Paladin there in a good position too, so that they were able to get the mass res. But still, it is a huge inconvenience when you're losing out on all that time, adding more deaths to the timer, as Sun and Sky here is just engaging with Harboron already to 75%.
Yeah, so it was very luckily there for Shepi. There was no quaking going off during that mass resurrection. That is the absolute worst feeling when you're about to get that mass res off and that quaking kicks you and delays the res that much more. Harboron's going down nice and slow for Team Sun Sky here. The single target damage is, it's not as crazy as we saw from Skyline D with the double rogue comp earlier, but they're doing they're taking the boss down nicely. Everything's looking good. It appears
they might be just having a little bit of lag, but we're back now.
We're in.
Yeah, and it was interesting you brought that up. They did bring the champions up to Harboron, much like Team Skyline did, but they're not having the same kind of synergy with the classes to be able to pump out extra single target damage. So you're kind of seeing that situation where enabling similar strategies, but having different class compositions is going to have you different strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely. So Shepi is taking a take 2 at the big pool inside of the boat right now. Looks like it's going a lot smoother this time. Maybe they were missing some cooldowns that they were perhaps waiting for when they were eating those feasts earlier. So now they have it and they're feeling confident to take the pool. But Harboron is going down at a good pace, and there's a lot to catch up for Shepi to be back in this one.
Yeah, we saw this in the last MDI. I'm very interested in seeing Schism being taken again by the Disc Priest. And we always saw it with Disc Priest in China having a very, very large favorability for it. Schism, of course, a cast that'll be increasing all your damage done to that target. But is it more interesting to see as well with the latest tier that Disc Priest have in tier 21, just having such a large buff to their penance damage. So by taking Schism, they're not losing out on castigation. They're not getting quite as much damage out. So I do think that Disc Priest could be doing a little bit more here and also have a little bit less effect on his mana.
I think a major theme also with we've seen across all teams this MDI, both in the tournament and on live, is how much damage the healers can output. So the Holy Paladin is doing quite a large amount of damage right now for Shepi. How does the Disc Priest damage compare to Holy Paladin with wings?
Well, Holy Paladin with wings just outbursts everywhere, outbursts the world, really. And I think part of the lack of damage is partially due to the talents. We're seeing a gigantic pull here by Sun and Sky, pulling every single piece of trash possible except for Skjall there.
Yeah, so they're going to take all this trash down safely. They've got darkness just in case. Got to make sure you manage the bursting stacks very closely. A little bit of kiting down the bridge. The barrier is out. Fire Mage is doing an absolute insane amount of damage. You know, the Rune of Power, the Combustion, the Signaling Beacon, this huge damage AoE coming out.
It's very scary to see. You know, there's the Cauterize coming out for the Mage there. They're just trying to, so much damage going out. They're trying to keep everybody alive. You know, we haven't even had many of these mobs even fall. I haven't even seen, we're just now starting to see the bursting stacks as 2 mobs fall. It's be very, very scary. You're seeing the Rapture going out as the Disc Priest, just trying to keep everybody up. And this is what I'm talking about, kind of worsening and worsening with the bursting effect. You're kind of just losing everybody. But if you're able to get enough of the trash down, I guess it will be kind of worth it.
Yeah, so it's a very dangerous pool, but the time saved by doing that pool as opposed to by breaking it up into smaller pools is quite significant. So they're still ahead. It's got a couple deaths now, but still less than Shepi. They're looking good. They're going to move in and kill the mini-boss, and they're going to have this huge cushion. Looks like they've just taken down the second boss here for Shepi, and we're going to see how they pull the boat.
Yeah, like you said, a huge cushion of time that's going to be available to them. But it is interesting to see, you know, when you have to deal with bursting as a Disc Priest, you know, most of your healing is relying on hitting other targets. So when you don't have access to that, you're kind of relying on, say, something like Shadow Covenant to be able to get people topped off. But it also puts you in the situation, especially when you're refreshing your bursting, that you keep on popping everything to get everybody topped off, and you're relying, and he basically went through the process of, you know, getting all your atonements out, relying on atonement healing. Atonement healing is not going to be available anymore because mobs are dying, relying on Shadow Covenant. You have, you know, huge cost incurred by that, and you're switching into Rapture and trying to get as many shields out, and then you still are losing people to it. So part of it, I think, might have been preparation, or being able to find like the right mobs to target that are going to be living as long as possible, but it might have also just been with how the mobs are dying. And we saw the difference in control between Sun and Sky, for example, versus Skyline D, which really paced themselves and did a great job there.
Yeah, so the Shepi's doing a very similar pool on the upper deck of the boat that we saw Skyline D do earlier, where they let all the mobs come out, and then they pull just the first pack on the right as well as the left side. But some of them are falling down. This is not what you want to see happen. It looks like the DK fell first, followed by a Demon Hunter. More deaths. They're bringing the mobs back, but some heals look like they went off. These mobs are still dangerous. They can heal themselves back up.
And yeah, and they just did the control with the mobs, you know, and that's one of the scariest things is when you're seeing the difference between Sun and Sky and Shepi, where they're able to have, you know, the polish there, making sure that they're able to get, you know, all the ads controlled, keeping them alive. And I really like seeing Sun and Sky, for example, having that control and the way that the Disc Priest was able to space through cooldowns, dropping Barrier first, the 25% damage reduction, then putting Pain Suppression on him later for the 40% damage reduction and the big healing out of your artifact traits. So it's interesting to see, you know, the extra tank value that the Disc Priest is kind of giving to them, even though they did incur quite a few deaths because the Disc Priest wasn't quite able to heal through the burst.
So Sunsky is just getting into Helya now, and the Lust just came off cooldown, so hopefully they'll be able to one-cycle the Helya boat, just like Skyline D did earlier. You know, hitting that timing window is very important. If you can't manage to get that one phase, it's going to cost you additional 30 seconds on the boss at the very least to get it down. So there is still a very slight chance that Shepi could be back in this, but they do have that 6 death minus. There's 3 seconds right there, right? So everything has to go perfect for Shepi, and something horrible is going to have to happen for Sunsky to see these guys get back into this game.
Yep, and you're seeing as everyone is focusing on this Destructor Tentacle because the next one is going to be spawning very, very soon, and then they're able to hopefully get a little bit better position. But again, it goes back to positioning like we're talking about on this boat. A lot of times you're able to get, you know, very, very simple deaths are able to occur if you're having poor positioning on here. You know, a lot of times, you know, a lot of the tentacles just shoot through the floor, stun you, whack you around, and you're always seeing constantly from a bird's eye view on the ship, you're seeing people hugging the left and right sides, and that's what I kind of want to see a little bit more. I mean, you're seeing the Disc Priest and the Mage kind of stacking together, kind of trying to stay close to each other, but a lot of times when you have to look at the timing of when these tentacles are going to spawn, how lethal they're going to be if they actually end up killing one of your...
Absolutely. There's really excellent positioning from Sunsky here on the left, where there's only the tentacles that spawned and broke the deck were the Destructor Tentacles, and none of the players stood in spots where they could get the deck broken underneath their feet and damage taken. Now, where these tentacles spawn is not random, but where they do end up choosing to spawn is random. They got very lucky by getting a tentacle spawn at the front for the second tentacle, but that allows them to cleave the Destructor down with those Grasping Tentacles, which allows them to get into the Helya phase that much faster.
Yeah, and one of the nice things is with the Grasping Tentacles you're seeing there, while they may not look very, very close by, they have such a huge hitbox where you're able to really easily cleave them no matter where you're at.
Yes. So now Helya's engaged, Lust is going, so cooldowns are popping. You see the Demon Hunters in Metamorphosis doing an absolute insane amount of damage right now. Once this boss gets down to 70%, the fight's over, and the dungeon timer hits, and so Shepi is just a little bit behind. They may be able to do it. If something happens to Sunsky, maybe a player stands in the breath, maybe someone gets tentacled.
And that's one of the scariest things about this boss fight is if you do wipe in the phase that Sun and Sky is, you have to start everything all over again. The ship reforms, the magic of the sea, and you have to take care of all the tentacles again, you have to take care of the boss, but right now it's looking like Sun and Sky has us under control, playing very, very safely, another 5%. Looks like they might be just a little bit shy before she goes into the submerge phase.
Just a little short, it looks like, on getting that one cycle, so they will have the additional 30 seconds before they're able to kill the boss. Shepi is on their heels, though. They've got, looks like the boss is about to transition. They have killed 6 tentacles, and so Helya's about to be engaged, but they've got to do an absolute insane amount of single target damage to get back into this dungeon and to maybe even clench out a win.
Yeah, and what you're seeing, it was kind of interesting comparing the Disc Priest and the Rested Druid here from the last time I was on the
Holy Paladin.
Sorry, the Rested Druid from the last series when I was doing that, where, you know, the Rested Druid spent all his time just putting up as many hots as possible. With the Disc Priest, you don't quite have that opportunity because if you're going to be using something like Clarity of Will to prep on healing, you know, you can easily get those shields eaten up by, you know, any of the quaking that's going out, any of the little random tertiary damage that's happening. So a lot of times just relying on as pure of atonement healing as possible just to make sure that you're focusing on, you know, getting out what you need. And you're seeing Sun and Sky finishing out the series, the very, very decisive win here.
The Helya is down, the fight is over, dungeon has been clenched.
Yeah, Sun and Sky with a very clean run in another game where we see different DPS coming out of the China region. I'm really excited to see like who's going to come out of this region and play on this stage, because I'd love the opportunity to talk to these guys, pick their brain a little bit on the strategies that they're coming up with, especially that Discipline Priest you talked about, the strategies, the talent choices coming out of him, but ultimately his team prevailed.
That's right, and one of the biggest things was the control and how they were pulling the mobs, where they both had very similar strategies, very, very different compositions ahead of them. So it really shows, you know, the practice, the polish, you know, and even when running with the Disc Priest, when you're running with something that's very much off meta, you know, China's again showing us that it's not necessarily going to be off the meta, it's the practice, the time you're putting in, the coordination.
Yeah, so if we deep dive into that dungeon, I think one of the things that really stood out for me is that Shepi actually had the lead at the very start of that one, and it was because of those double Demon Hunters. Do you think that's something that China's kind of ahead of the game on?
Well, it's a question of, would you prefer the double Demon Hunter or the double Windwalker? And if you ask, I believe, any other region, they're going to tell you that double Windwalker is quite scary right now. Whenever you can get away with a Windwalker in a dungeon, they can just do an absolute absurd amount of damage. But the Demon Hunter, the I-beam damage, the single target damage, you get benefit from kicking, you gain some fury. They're also incredibly strong, but the other regions really just love that Windwalker monk.
Yeah, and one thing I really wanted to talk about again, because I was a big advocate of the Warrior in the last series. I was told by my analysts that we might not see enough one, but we do see another one coming out in game, or series number 3, coming out of the number 2 seed Sunsky. What did you think of the Arms Warrior in this series?
Well, it was interesting talking about, you know, seeing the Warriors when we were on the couch backstage. You know, Sowers was talking so much about YD in the previous series. You know, the strength that the Warriors are able to pump out, and you know, they really just showed their stuff, right?
Yeah, so the Chinese Warriors love to play, they like to play Jump Pants, and they play the Increased Colossus Smash Duration, and they play Avatar. And so YD is actually one of the top Fury Warriors in the entire world, but he loves to play this Arms Warrior in dungeons, and he does an absolute monstrous amount of AoE damage. You know, he's one of the best players in the entire world, and you can't underestimate this guy.
Yeah, and I was actually having a lot of fun, like, because I mean, similar to the first dungeon where I was watching the Noggin Foggers, watching that Pharaoh Druid try and kill people, we saw here like the leaps and bounds ahead that these Arms Warriors can get to. But we are, of course, 1-0 up in this series. Sunsky with a strong game 1, the number 2 seed from China, looking good. They were not deterred by the stormy seas of Helya and the instance. So you see another good performance, another good time, honestly, but on the Chinese board. China is coming out so strong in this now. It's up to Shepi. Can they wreak havoc in game 2 to bring it back? This is the MDI China Regional Finals. Join us again after this quick break. You join us at a tight, or a 1-0 series for Sunsky. My apologies, as they look to put the Knights out for Shepi in this third series of the day. I am Adrian Healingstad, Archerlock. Joining me on the desk, we have Jack and we have Sours, once again providing that expert analysis from the North America region. And I mean, it's been quite interesting watching the China region so far. We've seen some different strategies that perhaps we would have seen in the Western side of things, but it's been working, and it's been working well.
Absolutely. So these Chinese teams, they've got their style and they've got it down to the T, right? These guys know exactly what they want to play. They play it really well. And, you know, you've got to respect the comfort they have in choosing their favorite classes whenever they want. And the execution is, so good.
It's so good. And Sunsky, they're the #2 team coming out of China in the time trials. I mean, I know that Sloot was saying a little bit that the time trials aren't super relevant because like some teams are really pushing hard to get that #1 seed, whereas some others are like, hey, we qualified, that's what we're going for. But definitely Sunsky, they brought out an odd composition here. We had the Fire Mage, we had the Warrior, we had the Discipline Priest, but they still had a very clean run, Jack.
Well, I mean, you were to talk about relevance. You're saying that, you know, Disc Priest has been very much underrepresented in the Mythic Plus scene. You know, you're talking about the time trial relevance. Well, they're going to show that they are relevant, right? And this is the greatest opportunity that they have to show that their compositions can work and can work in a global stage.
Yep, and of course we do have the map choice and the affix lock-in coming out of Shepi, who lost that series. They will have that advantage. Grievous is going to be the choice. I was waiting to see your face there, Jack, because it was definitely something, and you can see the map here is Court of Stars, so something that we haven't seen just yet. Sours, does this, is this what you were expecting coming out of this team?
This is definitely a single dungeon right up their alley. I was expecting something either Court of Stars or Darkheart Thicket coming out of Shepi, because these are dungeons that I really think that the Holy Paladin really shines in compared to the Discipline Priest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, Darkheart Thicket, Court of Stars, keep in mind with Court of Stars, you're not able to actually have any of those extra defensive abilities. You're not able to have, for example, the food or the brew where you're able to, you know, increase your health or have constant healing, or the book for damage reduction. So it puts a lot of pressure on the Disc Priest to make sure that they're adequately prepared, not only for the final boss, Melandris, but also making sure that they're ready for Taliax Flame Wraith, where there's going to be such constant damage going out, and it really is going to rely on how well they're able to cleave down those imps.
Yeah, and one of the other things I do want to mention is this is one of the first times we're actually having a tyrannical instance. I'm very excited for that. Sours, do you think that's going to make it even harder for the Discipline Priest?
I think that's also, yes, absolutely. It will make the Discipline's life a little bit more challenging. There's a lot more damage coming out, especially from the second and third boss here in Court of Stars. And this Double Havoc Demon Hunter, we saw 25 seconds faster on the first boss kill in the Darkheart Thicket, so we expect much quicker kill times out of the bosses out of Team Shepi, and it should be a great show.
And I mean, I was talking a little bit earlier about Necrotic. I was giving you some slack that it's always the healer's fault, even when the healer literally can't heal anymore. It's always the healer's fault. But Grievous is something that's really going to challenge this Disc Priest.
Oh, absolutely. And Grievous is going to be the biggest challenge here for the instance, where you're able to just focus. And ideally, what you want to be doing as a priest is focusing and drilling down on targets that are just about to start building up with Grievous stacks and focusing them down. The Twist of Fate is going to be extremely helpful here, especially when you're going to be going into like Lady Flame Wreath. If people are dropping low, the damage can ramp up really high, and not only are you dealing with the ticking damage, the imps exploding, but you're also going to be dealing with a very nasty Grievous dot.
Yep, and of course, Court of Stars being the map, the final affix we will be dealing with is teaming. That's pre-assigned with this by Blizzard at the start of the tournament, so the teams did know that coming in. But it's honestly, it's quite a gruesome key, I would say, tyrannical, teaming, and the Grievous stack. It's going to be hard for Sunsky, but also a good opportunity for them to show why they are the #2 team in China. If you had any predictions on what would be the hardest pulls in Court of Stars, like what are we really watching for the audience at home?
Everything is, all the hard pulls are going to come in the second half of the dungeon. The teaming affix is going to add 2 of the Inquisitors to a lot of the patrols back there, and if 2 Ice Storms go off, that could spell the end of your run. Those guys do an absolutely insane amount of damage, and it's very hard to heal through. The Holy Paladin should be able to go through it with wings and some cooldowns, but for the Disc Priest, if they accidentally face pull one of those pats, it could just wipe them all out.
Yeah, and throwing back to you once again, Sours, because you've been talking a lot about these 2 Demon Hunters being the Chinese meta. I would imagine that they would work very well into the teaming affix.
Oh, absolutely. So they love having more targets to cleave off of. More targets to cleave means more I-beams, it means more metamorphoses. They're just doing insane. It helps their damage so much, both on single target and on AoE. They really put this composition. They've got all of their tricks that they use, and they use them to great effect.
Yep, and I do hear that we are ready to get into Game 2 of this series. Of course, it is Shepi's last chance in this series. They need to win this one, otherwise they will drop down to that lower bracket. Meanwhile, Sunsky, the #2 team coming out of China, the favorites, the team that's 1-0 up, who have Court of Stars. We'll have to see if this oddball composition coming out of them will be enough to pull them through to the semifinals.
Court of Stars, my favorite instance. All right, Sun and Sky on the left side of your screen, on the larger screen here, and Shepi on the right side. Again, starting it off with, of course, just the boat that's going to be picking all of them up. Now, Sours, do you think that we're going to be seeing, usually we've seen the meta often involves getting the docks, getting all the mobs in there together, blowing them up. Do you think that we're going to be seeing that before the boss fight, or do you think you're going to start seeing it afterwards?
I think for Team Shepi, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them go into the boss and then send off the Paladin ahead to open up the gates while the rest of the team goes back to clear the docks. And Sunsky, you know, it's a surprise, right? Nobody really knows what these Chinese teams have been doing. It's a huge mystery. So we're going to go on this journey together, and we're going to see what they've got planned for us.
I'm ready for that journey. And of course, you know, the interesting things is going to be having to deal with none of any of the, well, except for just the poison. The poison is going to be the only thing that's going to be active over the course of this dungeon. You're not going to be able to have any of the extra buffs, any of the extra ways to pull more of the mini bosses that we're going to be seeing there. So it can make this instance, which usually is very, very friendly, especially if you're getting what you want, it can make it a lot more deadly, especially when we're going to be seeing Tyrannical coming in.
Absolutely. So we see a very common start to both of these dungeons where they're going to Demon Hunter imprison this first mob and run past it. Like Nagoro was talking about earlier, when you kill a single mob by itself, it's very slow and inefficient, and that mob likes to run through the dungeon and slam the ground a lot very slowly. So you've got to commit to him and kill him if you pull him. And so it's a great job on both teams by skipping that guy and moving on to start the trash.
Yeah, and one of the most annoying things is really going to be the Fortify that the guards like to cast. You know, you're taking that extra damage reduction and can deal a little bit more damage. It is nice to be able to have the Disc Priest, for example, as we're going to be going through. It looks like they're posturing for the dock pull here. And one of the nicest things you have with Disc Priest is rather than relying on, say, the mage to get any of the spell steals off, you're able to just have a single master spell clear off any of those little Fortified buffs and just absolutely annihilate them here.
So both teams are actually going into the dock pull together, so instead of going to the boss to get that lust on cooldown as soon as possible, they've opted to go to the docks first. Looks like Sunsky has actually killed it incredibly quickly. They're moving back up. They're probably going to pull some worms now, maybe kill that robot, and Shepi is right on their heels.
Yeah, it looks like they actually didn't even have to worry about lust because thankfully it's just a tyrannical key, so they're able to just absolutely melt things so rapidly here. And great job there just avoiding the construct. There is so much trash in this instance that it will be a little bit easier, a little bit less stressful, of course, for them to work on. But because it is teaming, a lot of the hitboxes are really close, especially when you see the constructs, for example, on the left and on the ones behind them. It can be very deadly. You know, if you're at very deadly to your time when you have to just focus on kicking all of these extra heals and suppressors that are going off.
Oh yeah, so this teaming affix in this dungeon really makes the second half quite dangerous. So it's important to get as much kill count as possible here before they go on to kill the first boss and transition into the second half.
Yep, and you're seeing here as they're engaging with the Saber, you know, one of the most deadly things, especially on Fortified, having to deal with it. But it can be quite nice to be able to, very satisfying, let me tell you, as a Disc Priest, being able to hit him with a Shining Force as the Saber likes to jump on you. But a lot of times, the DKs love to save us with the Death Grips before it gets us.
I know more than anybody just how dangerous cats can be in dungeons. They really love to jump on you, and they can really spell the end of your day. You know, they're very dangerous. Unlike Blackrock Hold, the cats here are not undead, so the DK will not be able to tame them, but they both teams kill them quite nicely. Nobody's been killed by the Saber, and they're moving on to prepare for, it looks like Sunsky is killing the last trash. They've pulled all of it, including the robot, so you got to make sure that you keep that robot kicked so he doesn't heal all of the trash around him, and Shepi is right on their heels.
Yeah, and you're seeing the Master Spell coming out there for Sun and Sky, just to make sure that they're able to clear off any of the Fortified buffs, the 2 Fortified buffs, and make them take a lot less damage. Then he's going off and turning off any of the the towers that'll be spawning any of the guards during the boss fight, making sure he's getting the poison, which anybody can, of course, take care of, and basically just posturing for the boss fight.
So it looks Shepi has actually pulled the boss first. I'm not sure how many beacons they've hit. So if you leave these beacons up, the mobs will come out and cast a hinder on the team, which can be really troublesome, but by having more mobs available for the Demon Hunters to I-beam off of, they'll actually be able to do an incredible amount of damage, and they could kill Gerdo significantly faster than Sunsky will be able to.
And one of the nice benefits, of course, having the Disc Priest there, Sun and Sky pulling it up, and you're able to get that Master Spell off, instantly clearing off any of those hindrances that Gerdo is going to be putting on the entire group. Nice little extra benefit, and it makes it so that you're not going to have any of your melee, because again, both sides are running double melee comps, you know, so inevitably you might have to be getting into some kind of situation where somebody is going to be dodging a street sweeper right as they're still slowed and jumping around.
you can see the Fire Mage is struggling to catch right now. He's used his cooldowns on the previous pack, and so he's a little bit, he's not contributing quite as much as the other classes are here, but that's a very important thing to how you route these dungeons. Where you use your cooldowns is really essential to speed. Sometimes it's not about doing as much damage as possible on trash, it's about playing the objective, and by him using his cooldowns on trash and allowing the Havoc Demon Hunter and Arms Warrior to have more cooldowns available for the boss, they're playing the objective better, and they should have a faster kill time than if they were to have held cooldowns or use them set differently.
Yeah, an excellent point as you're talking about here. And, you know, you're seeing Team Shepi here taking down Gerdo, and it's really interesting to see, you know, where they're going to be going next, because you are seeing they are posturing to actually take out this construct and actually do fight the construct rather than just having the Holy Paladin run right around it. You are able to skip past it if you are very quick, if you are able to just finesse your way around it, basically. So it is interesting to kind of see them taking that route, because it also means that they are more or less obligated towards taking that. Taking down the first Inquisitor pack right in front of them.
Looks like Shepi actually CC'd that mob and then just ran past it. Maybe it's going to come in and catch them. Maybe it'll reset. We'll see what happens. Normally, we see teams just send the healer ahead. And so you can see that Sunsky has actually done that here, where now the healer has gone ahead to open the door, and Sunsky has returned back to the start of the dungeon to clear some more trash, whereas Shepi has gone through all together as 5, and they're going to be killing this Inquisitor and Impact just on the outside of the door.
Yep, you're seeing Team Sun and Sky, of course, just waiting for the doors to be open. The spies will then just kill all those constructs and all those mobs that are around them. And while you're seeing, of course, Shepi engaging with the Inquisitor mob, thankfully it's, you know, it's a 22, so it's not going to be absolutely deadly. But you do want to see the quick grip coming out there by Team Shepi, making sure they're interrupting the Ice Storm there, getting the kicks out on the Searing Gazes, really just having the excellent control here. And while it's just one Inquisitor, you really have to watch out for the other 2 packs.
Yeah, so luckily there's only one Inquisitor in this first trash pool, and as DK you have a lot of things in your toolkit that allow you to make them a lot less dangerous. You can stun them and you can grip them during Ice Storm, and that will cancel the Ice Storm early, which can save an absolute ton of healing that your healer has to do, and that could potentially kill one of your teammates.
Yeah, it's kind of a scary pull coming out here by Shepi, where they're really, really close to the patrol. Like, they're actually just edging up so close, and they do end up pulling it. Team Shepi getting the extra 2 constructs here. So much extra trash to pull. I do not think it was intentional at all. It's going to be adding such a big pain to them, because they do need to make sure they're kicking both of the heals and taking care of the Ice Storm and taking care of the Suppress. So much work for them now.
Yeah, so this may be a practice pool, it may not be. It's definitely not something that you see standard. The Holy Paladin is down, he's getting a B-res. There's a lot of damage going out, but it looks like the mobs are still at full health. So maybe a heal went off. This is why you've got to be careful when you pull robots like this, and there's...
Both charging stations just went off for the Paladin. This is just going to be a full wipe. I mean, they recognize once both those charging stations went off, they just can't sustain this. And this is one of the things, is Court of Stars itself is not some big scary instance like we've seen with others, but it's so easy to make these little mistakes.
This is absolutely part of the mindset of you got to go slow to go fast, right? They tried to go too fast there. You know, they played with fire and they got burned. You know, they wiped, they got the heals off, the Inquisitors are doing a ton of damage, and there was the fastest, safest option there is just wipe it up, recenter yourself, and continue to do the dungeon normally.
Yeah, but you're seeing Sun and Sky here pulling the first of the mini bosses, Amakutya. You better watch out for her with blades. The Whirling Blades will put a very nasty dot bleed onto everybody. They're pulling that with the Inquisitor, and again, this is the control that we're seeing here. This is, we are able to actually take on these ads. We are able to deal with them. It's going to be something that we're going to have control over, and it's so clean the way that they're doing it. They only have 1 death, and that 1 death is just the priest going over, opening up the doors for them, and giving them a lot of space to work with, and that's the biggest thing, having space to work with.
Absolutely. It's incredibly efficient to pull Amakutya along with a little bit of extra trash. The DKs can keep things under control. The warrior cooldowns are in full effect. He's doing quite a respectable amount of damage here. Looks like after they kill him, we'll have to see where the next Inquisitor spawns. They could have quite a journey to go to pull him next, and there's a lot of trash to do.
Yeah, and you're seeing, of course, by Team Shepi, they are getting hit by the Enforcers. The Enforcers AoE there, taking so much damage. The Holy Pally did go down, so they're taking down they're still having to deal with the Enforcer. No healers left available. They still have some of the dots coming out. The healers catching up here, which is so much extra unnecessary damage. It's just wasting so much more time. It's really hurting them.
Absolutely. It's very important to see that you see Team Shepi here has pulled the Inquisitor over to a corner, because you can line of sight that fell explosion, and then that way the dot will not go out of the team, and that can be very dangerous to deal with. It is a tyrannical key and not a fortified key, so it could be doing more damage at the same keystone level, but it is not something that a good healer can't handle.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is, when you're seeing just that extra death, when you're having to it wasn't even pulling with like a lot of extra mobs or anything like that. Just losing that little control for just a second can just make it so much more difficult. And again, just start draining away your time a little bit by bit. And as we're seeing here, Sun and Sky is waiting for the next of the mini bosses here, waiting and trying to get a little bit of extra trash probably when they get Veilguard down. And
so Sun Sky's got a really great position here for killing our Watcher here. It's important that you don't want to stand somewhere where one of the next trash mobs that is going to spawn a mini boss spawns, because the last thing you want to do is when you're fighting one of these guys is have one of those enforcers spawn on you and then possibly kill the entire group, because these guys will put the group in boss combat, which means you cannot release, which is so deaths are very important to avoid when fighting these guys.
Yeah, and like you just said, the positioning was perfect, because as you're seeing on Sun and Sky's screen, you know, the enforcer was spawning just over that little set of flowers that they're standing next to. You know, they had just cleared out that entire area, you didn't even know, but they made sure that they're playing as safely as they possibly can just to avoid that stuff, just to avoid the possibility of it happening.
So Shepi looks like they've killed their enforcer. They're waiting for the boss to come. Looks like, are they on Amakacha? Are they on? Like,
I think they are on Veilguard as well here.
Okay, so it looks like they're pulling him in addition to the Succubus as well as the Imp. So this is more damage, like I said earlier. So it's for the Havoc Demon Hunters. Having these additional mobs to cleave off of is going to allow them to kill this boss faster. And so it's really helpful for, you see also with the Rogues love to do this also, where that you turn your AoE into single target, which allows you to kill the priority mobs really fast. And it's, you know, it's really smart play.
Yeah, and what's interesting to see is they're actually not too terribly far behind here. They are halfway through Veilguard. They do still, whereas Sun and Sky has to kill that extra enforcer and things like that. But the biggest difference, the biggest thing that's killing them right now is the death differential, right? When you're having that extra 35 seconds, just makes it so much more difficult to catch up.
Yeah, so Sun Sky's just got a little bit of trash left to clear while they're finishing up on Veilguard for Shepi. You know, there's just a little bit of trash. They've got to run over and kill this last enforcer at spawn as far as possible. And so once they've cleared him, they've just got our Stomp friend to deal with, and then they'll be moving on to Mrs. Flamewreath, and then that's when things can get really scary for the Disc Priest.
Well, not scarier than Mr. Flamewreath, let me tell you. So we're seeing, of course, you know, they are taking down the last enforcer, and, you know, one of the biggest challenges here is making sure you're taking care of the patrols. You know, you're seeing, of course, what this pull for Team Shepi can usually be more of a pain, where you have to take down the Inquisitor along with the Enforcer, and that was one of the areas, of course, that Team Shepi did lose their Paladin when they had to go Enforcer into the Inquisitor. But at this point, they really just can't waste any more time. They have to be playing aggressively. They have to catch up by any means necessary.
Absolutely. If teams are watching the broadcast, looks like, oh, they've killed the Enforcer.
Huge damage, and maybe even another wipe coming out for Team Shepi here. Just so much. And of course, that's what's happening again, is when you have to deal with those Enforcers, and they were getting the other mini-boss coming out. Such big risks.
Absolutely disastrous wipe. That's going to set them back quite a bit. I don't know if, I think it almost looked like they pulled the Enforcer without even killing or maybe it spawned on top of them. That guy came at them really fast, almost as if he was buffed by the boss the entire time. So I'm not really sure where he came from.
It looked like they might have just been pulling the Enforcer pack, pulling the Inquisitor pack, and then the Enforcer just spawned on him. You know, again, not following what you're talking about. We're just trying to get at least an idea. You don't have to wait too terribly long, because again, that Enforcer spawned almost immediately there.
Yeah. And so Sun Sky is now killing. They're halfway done with the last mini boss before they move on to the real boss. And you know, Shepi's got a lot to catch up on. They're back on the same trash pool as earlier, doing AOE. You know, this will be kill count for them, and then they've just got one mini boss, and then they'll be together with him on Flamewreath.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things when we're going into Flamewreath here, you know, how do you think with this composition for Sun and Sky, how they're going to be pacing, for example, their cooldowns? Are they, you know, are they going to be able to have, you know, multiple cooldowns rolling at a time? They're going to be spacing them out. How do you see them really setting it up here?
In a 22 tyrannical like this, I think it's going to be very important to see that they alternate who gets to pat on the imps, as people would like to say. So maybe you'll see Warrior go first on imps, followed by Demon Hunter cooldowns on the second one, and then maybe Fire Mage on the third. You'll see on the meter, right? One class is gonna they're gonna leapfrog over each other as those imps spawn, and doing that will ensure that, you know, they're playing the objective of killing those imps so that they don't wipe to the boss, so that they can kill it safely and move on to the third boss.
And one of the nicest things, like, from a healer perspective, especially the Disc Priest in this fight, you know, when you are having to deal with Grievous, we haven't really seen Grievous been too impactful up until this point, but this is going to be the challenge here. You know, as you're seeing, like, their Disc Priest is doing an excellent job making sure they're clearing off any of those debuffs there. He's trying to do as much healing as he can through Atonement, but I can tell you, when that consumption buff goes up right when all the ads come out, it makes your life so much more easy.
Oh yeah, so this boss is of course ramping up in the amount of damage it's putting out to the team. So the disc life only gets harder and harder. We haven't seen barrier come out yet, so he still has those healing cooldowns up his sleeve. You know, you see that Fire Mage is the most recent one to kill on the imps. Looks like it's Warrior's turn next. This is the kind of things you want to see out of these teams. You know, this coordination is really important when you want to play at a high level like this, really to maximize your chance of completing the dungeon clear. You can see there's the I-Beam, the Metamorphosis, Demon Hunter's doing damage, Warrior's doing a ton of damage. All those imps are down instantly. All that damage is avoided that the healer would have to recover from. And you know,
and that's one of the nice things when you're able to have that kind of control, like you're talking about. You know, the disc mana is doing very well, only at half. They haven't even had to use barrier yet. Rapture is going out, so it looks like they will probably use barrier maybe on the very last one if they even need it. And it's nice, you know, you're not even having to actually rely on like Twist of Fate, for example, if they're running Soul of the High Priest ring, you know, because it can be kind of dangerous waiting for them to drop. As you're seeing, you know, health pools are going to be dropping in the 20 to 30% at a time. So you're trying to line it up perfectly so that you're able to proc Twist of Fate, instantly get people back up and not have them in a dangerous zone is really nice. But again, you're seeing, you know, they have excellent control, excellent ad control getting down.
Shepi is just engaging the last boss here. It looked like after they killed Jizaru that they actually got another Enforcer spawn on them because they were fighting an Enforcer until just a second ago, and there was no mini-boss following that Enforcer. So that's why where you position to kill these bosses is so important, because if you're standing in the wrong spot, then a mob's going to spawn on you, and then it sets you back an incredible amount of time, and that's further lead for Sunsky here.
Yeah, and you're seeing Sun and Sky, for example, having such great control, such great patience, really, watching where the Enforcers are going to spawn, making sure that they already have that list of predetermined spawn locations in their head before they do it. Now, of course, we have my favorite part of the instance, where you're able to be your ace detective. Getting all the clues, of course, will allow your Demon Hunter to instantly just figure out who the spy is. Personally, I like to gamble. I like to guess.
Oh yeah, so some guys showed some absolutely incredible discipline here in this dungeon. You know, they found their clues. Demon Hunter's popped his vision, and now they're off to kill our Dreadlord here. And once that's done, you know, Shepi's got Flame Wreath on 56%. Do you think that maybe a wipe is like, what's going to be scary for this Disc Priest here going into the last boss? Like,
thankfully for the Dreadlord, it's not going to be too terrifying at this point. You know, I mean, something like Raging, for example, might be very scary, where you're going to be able to take advantage of Clarity Will. I am actually quite curious. I haven't seen any Clarity Will cast yet, so he might end up actually running with Shadow Covenant, and I believe he is. So one of the big things for the last boss is, again, going to be your preparation. Ideally, if you're going to be running with something like Sephuz, because the tank is going to be able to run into any of those tornadoes, you're able to dispel them, easily get your Sephuz proc. Every other Piercing Gale or Slicing Maelstrom is going to go out, but you're also on the other ones going to be able to have consumption, so it's going to be a huge help for them.
Clarity of Will is actually a great point. Something that is really cool about the Chinese region is they play a lot of talents that no other region plays. People may not have noticed it in previous series, but we did see a Sentinel flying around in a Maw of Souls earlier. That Sentinel Piercing Shot is one of the Chinese favorite build. You know, the Arms Warrior playing the build they play. This is not the kind of arms build that you see coming out of NA Warriors or even EU or even APAC Warriors. You know, they've got their own meta over in China, and they've got it down to the T. You know, these guys, you know, they know what they like to do, they know how they like to play, and they do an incredible job at it. Yeah,
and that's going to be one of the greatest things going from this weekend into the future weekends, seeing how they're going to be playing up on the world stage here. You are seeing Sun and Sky, of course, getting the Dreadlord down and moving on to the final boss, right as Shepi is working on finding out who the spy is here.
Absolutely. So they've got the Demon Hunters are very quick. They can jump a lot. They can talk to those 5 guys as soon as possible, and then
for a burger order.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so then they'll, kill the mini boss, and then they'll be just behind Shepi. You know, anything could happen here. This is still anyone's game, but Sunsky has got quite a good. You know, they've got quite a good shot at it.
Quite a good lead, and they might be ready to eat crow. Having assuming, for example, that they would have more struggles, for example, on this last boss. I mean, we'll see how well-founded it is. They are having their mage being the only one standing off alone here. Of course, Advisor Melandris will instantly charge the furthest away, or one of the ranged targets, I should say. So we're having everybody stacking up. The Disc Priest is getting in close here, and they're stacking up all of the clone targets, because whenever he lands, he drops a clone. That's going to actually affect the Piercing Gale that's going to come out. So it's going to make it just one little line from the boss to those to those copies of him, to the clones of what you actually have to dodge. It's so nice when you have that consistency there.
Yeah, this is something that I absolutely love to see out of teams here on Melandrius, where his charge is always going to go on the furthest target, so you can actually stack all of these guys on top of each other. It makes the fight that much safer. You know, there's a lot less things everywhere to deal with. You know, look at how clean their platform is. You know,
it's so much easier to deal with, and it's excellent. They are actually taking Clarity Will. I'm glad, very glad to see that. Yeah, they are taking Clarity Will, which makes it so much easier, because when the Slicing Maelstrom does go out, it's just huge ticking damage. The Disc Priest doesn't quite exactly have all the tools to be able to deal with up front with just raw healing. So instead, they counter it by taking Clarity Will, stacking up shields in everybody in advance, and then being able to have, you know, a bit of a softening, a bit of a smoothing out of the damage patterns there, because they already have a little bit of an advantage. And again, having the DK, giving out 20% leech every other time helps out so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is a really beautiful play coming out of Sunsky. This is the kind of coordination you expect to see coming out from the second seed of any region. You know, Shepi is on their heels. They've just got the mini boss to go, while Melandrius is on 50%, but that 12 death deficit is quite large, and the Disc Priest seems to be doing quite a good job. He's on 50% mana. You know, once this is over, you know, the damage doesn't get any crazier from here. After a certain point, you know,
you're capped out on damage.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the nice things to see is, you know, not only that, but also this is going to be kind of the struggle point, and this is where I really want to see Barrier here. He's trying to catch up. He's trying to get everybody topped off from the Grievous ticks that are going out, and I think now more than any other time is going to be where you really, yep, there it comes Barrier, right? You still have not cleared out the Grievous. Slicing Maelstrom's coming out. You have no preparation to be able to deal with it. Lean on Barrier. You get everybody topped out. You have all of your Atonement healing, for example, buffed by 100%. That's excellent move, excellent instincts here for Sun and Sky's Disc Priest.
Absolutely, yeah. You can lean on me anytime, Jack, and you know, these guys have leaned on their Disc Priest, and they've shown great use of the barrier. You know, Shepi's moving on to the last boss, but 32%. The damage isn't getting any crazier. Fire Mage, if he's wearing bracers, belt, he could be going into Scorch execute range. You know, the Arms Warrior's about to turn online. You know, it's quite an impressive game out of Sunsky. You know, they've really done, you know, a really impressive job here.
Yeah, and you're seeing when Disc Priest gets on the back foot, he had excellent instincts and making sure he knows what he's able to do. But now for this, he has constant Clarity Will casts, he constant shields going up, and now that he has that balance, because the damage has already capped out at this point, and even has really good positioning here if you're watching right now. He's standing just outside of melee range, so he's not even going to get hit by the extra damage that will come from just standing next to the boss or standing next to the copies during the Slicing Maelstroms. Great instincts here.
Oh yeah, so, you know, they're cleaning up the dungeon, really clean run, only one death in a 22-minute dungeon is looking to be.
And it was a planned death too.
Absolutely, yeah, so it's important sometimes as a Death Knight or even as a Vengeance Demon Hunter, if you pop, I believe it was the Death Knight who died, but when you get a Purgatory pop or maybe a Last Stand proc, you know, it's useful to sometimes die to reset that cooldown so that you have it in a time of need.
An excellent showing here by Team Sun and Sky with a near flawless performance in Court of Stars, playing so carefully, so safely, and getting very rewarded for it.
Yep, another great performance coming out of the China region. We saw Sun Sky there win the series 2-0 against Shepi, so a very good performance coming out of them, very clean as we were saying at the very end of that one. But I definitely want to give credit to Shepi as well for their preparation coming in. Once again, that double Demon Hunter looking strong at the start of it, but ultimately I just feel like they were the worst team in the affair.
Oh, absolutely. You know, they showed really incredible pulls, but they may have been a little overzealous in one or two of them, and, you know, that was their demise, right? By pulling the double Guardian pack who got off the heels, you know, that was really the turning point in the dungeon, where all the lead that they had even had up to that point was gone. That wipe was absolutely devastating for them, and it really set them back. They just couldn't recover from there.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with those patrols. As a ranged caster who doesn't have any awareness outside of what I'm DPSing, I am absolutely aware of that, because I get yelled at a lot in comms, must admit. But Sun Sky looking very good, and I think it's something that we've been talking about a little bit as well. Like the time trials, we saw some very risque strategies coming out as the teams obviously had infinite pulls, they had infinite time throughout that week to perfect and get the perfect run. But here, it's all or nothing. It is a race after all.
It's all or nothing, and it shows, you know, when you have to be playing safe, when you have to be playing a little bit more securely, and really, we were talking in backstage about what instances might be a little bit better for a counter pick to kind of get rid of the Disc Priest or kind of just psych him out of the game or put him in a more difficult situation. We saw what happens when you're able to have that extra preparation. You're able to see, for example, the Sephu's Pride as combination being used on the last boss, where you're able to get the little Sephu's proc by dispelling the tank. Then you're able to get huge shields out right before the Slicing Maelstrom comes. Very excellent setup and Very, very glad to see Disc win.
Yep, very good performance. The Discipline Priest did it, and Jack was on the bench to see it. So 2-0 win there for SunSky. SunSky joining, of course, the other Sky teams to make an all-sunny affair. Beautiful stuff from China in that upper bracket. We have our three of our top 4 teams now, so we're looking good, but no one's out of it just yet. There's double elimination, but our next series will be the final 2 teams from China. We've got Ying going against No Healer in this next one. See you after this.